Yo, what is up, guys? XRP is at $1.04 right now on CoinMarket. Our first tweet comes from Bank XRP. Justin, Invesco files with the SEC to launch a tokenized money market fund designed for stablecoin issuers under the Genius Act framework. Our next tweet comes from Crypto Barbie. Senator Cynthia Loomis says her crypto tax bill would put an end to the unfair tax practices and level the playing field for digital assets. Level playing field? XRP? Let's watch this video.
It is now, and that's why we want to discuss the digital asset tax legislation, because there's a whole lot of parts of this. But again, it's smart stuff because, listen, the more it grows, we want to make sure people are protected with taxes. You want to talk about the most important parts of this?
I do. There's a part that would prevent the double taxation of digital assets. Right now, they're taxed when they're identified, and they're taxed again when they're sold. We don't do that with things like gold and cattle. We tax them when they're sold. And so we need to change that for digital assets. We're also sponsoring legislation that would create a de minimis amount that people could spend. When we're using Bitcoin as a means of exchange, we want to have a de minimis amount that can be used and spent without being subject to taxation. That amount would be about $5,000 per year. So those are a couple of the main provisions.
Smash that subscribe button and hit that like button if you believe XRP will reach $3 again this year. Our next tweet comes from Crypto Barbie. US Senator Cynthia Loomis says, I believe we are going to get the Clarity Act done. It's happening in 2026. Our next tweet comes from Zave Crypto. Justin, Galaxy CEO Mike Novogratz says, Clarity Act passage will trigger a TradFi stampede into crypto tokenization of stocks, mortgages, and real-world assets. Running on crypto rails is the endgame. Let's watch this video.
I think we're going to get it done. And I think that's important because that's going to unleash the next wave of TradFi guys coming into crypto. It's going to be a stampede. And you've seen it already. There's been a couple transactions, M&A transactions done where TradFi guys are saying, hey, I've got to get set. And it's really set for the tokenization of stocks, the tokenization of mortgages, the tokenization of everything. It will be crypto rails, wallet infrastructure, staking infrastructure, token security that slowly replaces the existing infrastructure that we have. And so that's happening. And I think this Clarity Act is a big, big part of it.
Our next tweet comes from Bank XRP. Clarity Act passage remains the single most consequential pending legislation for U.S. digital asset markets. Markets are waiting, institutions are waiting, pass the bill. Our next tweet comes from Bank XRP. Brad Garlinghouse just told CNBC that long-term value of any digital asset is driven by utility, not financial engineering. XRP's ODL volume hit $1.2 billion in Q1 2026, up 45% year over year. That's not hype, that's product market fit. The institutions know. Do you? Let's watch this video.
Garlinghouse, Ripple, of course, a member of CNBC's Disruptor 50 list. It's great to have you back at the NYSE, Brad. Good to see you.
Great to be back.
So when they were a seller for the first time in a while, strategy that is, that got a lot of notice. Do you think that started something?
I think it definitely started something. And, I think the challenge is it added some excitement on the way up. And now that's compounding on the way down as well. And so as we have seen, crypto is going to go through its cycles. Many asset classes do that. I think because they were using leverage, Michael Saylor would characterize it differently than leverage per se. But at the end of the day, it was leverage, and then you start to see that in a place that can actually compound negatively. I mean, seeing the particular thing they have pegged at 100 now trade, I think 25% below par, is a pretty damning indictment, and I don't think that's helped the market.
Yeah, a ticker, if the booth is wondering, that would be STRC, which we're watching closely. I mean, there's been a lot of ink spilled on how Saylor protects the preferred, protects the currency, and protects the equity. Do you think one should come first?
Look, I actually think what should come first is focusing on what's going to drive long-term value. And I think that financial engineering does not drive long-term value. I said actually on CNBC 5 or 6 years ago that I thought the long-term value of any digital asset is going to be driven by utility. And if it's solving a problem at scale for real customers, you're going to see liquidity, you're going to see demand, you're going to see trust in that asset. Those things compound in a positive way. And I think if you're just trying to financial engineer and leverage and borrow more money to buy more Bitcoin, it's kind of like, look, I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I think I subscribe to the Warren Buffett expression of be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. Now is the time, I think, to be greedy. But I also think, Team Michael Saylor wasn't focused on the right stuff, and that has hurt the overall market.
So what do you think the utility of Bitcoin is now?
Well, Bitcoin has definitely carved out, I think, a space as digital gold. And, there's all kinds of funny stories about when the central bank of Germany was moving $300 billion of gold. It took 2 years and billions of dollars to move it. If you wanted to move $300 billion of Bitcoin, you could do that in a pretty reasonable, quick way. So I think about Ripple's digital asset that we focus on as kind of our technology stack, XRP. The utility there is really focused on payments. And leveraging the speed and efficiency of that blockchain in a way for institutions. And we've seen tremendous demand. I mean, last year, partly through acquisitions, we cleared $16 trillion of payments or clearing on the prime brokerage business. But last year, the percentage of that went through a digital asset was close to 0%. So the opportunity is to introduce and bring traditional finance. And Ripple's strategy from the beginning has been, how do we bring traditional finance into the modern architecture of blockchain? And now, through some acquisitions, we have a tremendous opportunity to bring that in.
Our next tweet comes from the Crypto Squire. Mike Novogratz speaks. Galaxy CEO Mike Novogratz says the Clarity Act could trigger a massive wave of TradFi firms entering crypto with stocks, mortgages, and real-world assets moving on-chain. XRP stands at the center of this transformation. Our next tweet comes from SmokeDQG. This is why institutional investors remain optimistic on crypto despite the recent volatility. This cycle is fundamentally different. In prior cycles, prices led and adoption followed. That sequence has now inverted. Massive levels of institutional adoption are accelerating behind the scenes across digital services. More adoption and depth, infrastructure, and institutional integration than has ever occurred in the asset class history. However, prices are lagging these foundational developments. This lag does not signal a flaw in the market or the thesis. It represents a temporary disconnect between on-chain fundamentals and market pricing that will not persist. It is a window of opportunity that sophisticated capital explicitly recognizes and is positioning for. Those who identify this mismatch between surface-level price action and structural progress will be disproportionately rewarded as the convergence unfolds. The eventual catch-up between prices and these entrenched fundamentals is what will decisively reshape perceptions of digital assets from speculative to essential infrastructure. Listen, warning, very bullish clip. Let's watch this video.
Crypto prices have fallen dramatically in the past couple of weeks. And while all that is going on, the S&P's hit a 24th record this year. The Dow and NASDAQ are both at record highs. And yet, as of last night, Bitcoin is down 27% for the year. Ethereum and Solana down more than 40% for the year. But at the same time, it's clear that tokenized stocks are coming. The New York Stock Exchange has announced that they're planning to launch 24/7 trading for clearing, settlement, capital formation, and data distribution. NASDAQ is doing the same thing by partnering with Kraken. Securitize, the largest firm in the RWA space, working with some of the biggest TradFi organizations, has just announced a deal with ComputerShare to begin issuing tokenized securities. And it's not just tokenized stocks that are coming, tokenized ETFs are coming as well. All the major asset managers are racing to launch tokenized securities and ETFs. And tokenized cash is coming. Stripe, Visa, and MasterCard just announced last week they're backing a new stablecoin platform. Visa is now settling stablecoin deals on 9 different blockchains. They're running already at a $7 billion annual rate. That's up 50% in just 3 months. JP Morgan Chase, Citi, B of A, and Wells Fargo have together announced they're launching a tokenized deposit network. Goldman Sachs has launched a stablecoin reserves fund. Ondo, JP Morgan, MasterCard, and Ripple just did the first cross-border, near real-time, cross-bank redemption of a tokenized U.S. Treasury fund, and they did it not in the usual 3-day settlement, but in 5 seconds. This is revolutionary. Meta has announced they're going to allow stablecoin payments for its 3 billion global users. Everybody's looking at Morgan Stanley with 16,000 advisors. Meta's got 3 billion users. And for all those reasons, retail engagement is rising. Schwab is going to start allowing its clients to trade Bitcoin and Ethereum for 75 basis points. That is half of Coinbase's fee. Schwab has got Coinbase in its eyes, and it's going to go directly after them. Wells Fargo is doing the same thing with its own crypto exchange. Morgan Stanley, as you know, has already launched a Bitcoin ETF. It's coming soon with Ethereum and Solana. And it has told its 16,000 advisors that it wants 2 to 4% of client assets in crypto. By the way, just think about that. That if you've got $7 trillion and 4% of that goes into crypto, you add up the math, that translates to $16,000 worth of price added to Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is currently at 65, increase it by 16 grand just because of Morgan Stanley. Now go add Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, UBS, and you can see the incredible price increases that are coming by the engagement of the wirehouses. And that's why Wells Fargo has announced they're doing the same thing with their own crypto exchange. Morgan Stanley is also allowing their clients to invest via E-Trade. You're going to see a big price war coming. Coinbase at 1.5% each way of the trade. Schwab has announced 50% reduction. E-Trade is less than that. So we're going to see prices come down dramatically, just like we saw a price war in the Bitcoin ETFs. Goldman's getting in on the game too. They have filed for a Bitcoin income ETF. PayPal is now processing crypto trades on the Solana blockchain. Fannie Mae is accepting crypto as collateral for mortgages. The House Ways and Means Committee today is holding a hearing on 7 crypto tax bills, creating the clarification for how we handle taxation with crypto. So is it any surprise that in the new Digital Asset Survey of 2026, just released by Institutional Investor magazine, 75% of institutional investors say they plan to buy more crypto. 94% of institutional investors who don't yet own crypto say they plan to allocate this year. So what's going to happen when you have all the institutional investors and pension funds, endowments, sovereign wealth funds, all family offices, and more engaging with...
Real quick, if this helped, press the like button. It tells YouTube to show this to people who want the truth, not hype. And press the subscribe button if you're done being sold the moon. I've already got your next one right here. Go!